How are we doing, YouTube? It's your friendly gamer SmartEntity here. Today we're going to talk about the Marelok upgraded. So yes, we are going to talk about the Vaykor Marelok, the Syndicate Marelok. Now, as far as the strict difference between the two weapons go, the Vaykor Marelok is a direct upgrade. Yes, there is some slight differences in terms of how the physical damage distribution is done across the three components, but it does do the same total physical damage. The main difference comes from an increased magazine size from 6 to 10 and an increase in critical chance from 15 to 20. Now, despite having the same physical damage, the Vaykor Marelok is significantly much better than the standard Marelok, and this is one of the main reasons that when I first did a video on the Marelok, I was really hesitant to put a potato and then 4 formers on, just because I knew there was an upgrade coming. At the time, I didn't know there was going to be a Syndicate weapon upgrade. Obviously, I didn't know there was going to be Syndicate. I thought it would be a dual wield or a Prime/Wraith version. But the Syndicate upgrade is definitely worth your time getting, and it's definitely worth that potato as well as the formers. Now, to do the build I've done, I put on 5 formers. You can get away with just 4 formers, but you do need to former the eyes polarity on here. I didn't former the eyes polarity, instead I put an extra former on just so I can save all the polarities, but that is due to preference. The reason I save polarities, such as the eyes polarity, is because there's been numerous occasions on live streams where the developers have said that they do plan to implement more mods of the eyes polarity. Alrighty, so as usual, we'll jump into Warframe Builder and have a quick look at the actual numbers. Now, one final thing to note is that the Vaykor Marelok do have a start chance of 35% versus the standard, which is 30%. Yes, it's better than nothing, but to be honest, in gameplay, it's not that significant. Alrighty, so let's have a look at the two weapons. Now, the split being almost the same as far as fire mechanism, lock, and everything else goes, the build for the two weapons can, strictly speaking, be quite different. Now, the Vaykor Marelok, I've used a crit build. The standard Marelok, usually I run with this build. Now, this build is far from optimal, but it's a build that I found to be most practical. So, of course, the build we are talking about are tower builds. So, as a simple justification, we got Barrier Fusion, Lethal Torrent, Hornet Strike. No reason to ever not use these mods. So, these are your core mods. In addition, I've used the 390% mods, so Convulsion, Passage Rounds for Corrosive, and Heated Charge for Heat. And then I've chucked in Pistolins in there to add to Corrosive, and Ice Storm in there mainly for the increase in magazine size. So they effectively increased magazine size from 6 to 8, I believe. Of course, that does mean it combined with heat to create blast. Now, strictly speaking, this build is far from optimal, but it's a build I like to use. If you want to use a very high damage number build, you do want to actually use a crit build with this weapon as well. So despite having 15% starter's chance, so the total damage we look at here is about 7,200 total damage, as well as a 14,000 sustained DPS. If we switch that over to a crit build, so we'll take away Ice Storm and put in Pistol Gambit, and we'll take away Pistolins and chuck in Target Cracker. So Pistol Gambit is the crit chance and Target Cracker is the crit damage. So we get a significant increase in total damage. Yes, we get a slightly lower sustained DPS because we lost that magazine size, i.e. there's more reload time, but we get a better total damage. So again, overall, I like to use Ice Storm in there just for that increase in magazine size. And yes, it creates blast, but the Marelok, even at baseline, is so strong, it doesn't really matter that much. So we'll leave this build for now, but today we're really here to talk about the Vaykor Marelok, the upgraded version. Now, 2 things I want to mention. The first thing is, yes, this is a crit build, the exact same build as you want to use in your Soma, your Synapse, so the rifle versions. Of course, there are different mods, but the build is the same. So in rifle, we'll be using things like Split Chamber. For Barrier Fusion, we'll use Serration for Hornet Strike, and your, I guess, Heavy Caliber will be your Lethal Torrent substitute, and you want to put in your 3 90% elementals, as well as your crit chance and crit damage. So 2 main things I want to mention that is significantly different for pistols. The first is Pistol Gambit is 120% crit chance versus your Point Strike for rifles, which is 90% crit chance. And what that means is, despite having a slightly lower crit chance than usual, so usual I use a guideline of 25% for a crit weapon, so despite having only 20%, that 120 crit chance, the boost, does make it definitely justified. And as far as the second difference is, you gotta remember with these pistols, you only have 3 90% mods. The remaining ice one is only 60%, which you can actually use Frostbite instead of Deep Freeze. So that aside, there is definitely no question about the Vaykor Marelok is definitely suitable for a crit build, and this is really the build you want to use for it. Now, as far as modding for each faction go, you can check out my tutorial video on modding for each faction. I'll put a link up here somewhere. And basically, as far as a, I guess, comparison, again, you mod this the exact same way as your Soma, your Synapse, your Amprex in the rifle form. You just gotta obviously use rifle mods, or in this case, you use pistol mods instead of the rifle mods. Alrighty, so we're in a T3 Exterminate here. For demonstration purposes, I like to use this map because you are facing enemies around level 30 to 35, so quite representative of, I guess, standard everyday gameplay. So the Vaykor Marelok is, of course, the top tier weapon. The fact that it's better than the normal Marelok, that in itself, by definition, means it's top tier. As far as damage goes, if we fight a standard armor unit, you do about 1800 crit per shot, per damage point. Of course, if Barrier Fusion and Lethal Torrent both succeed and give you that extra split shot, you will do 3 times that, or up to 3 times that. So got a Bombard here. If you do a standard headshot, you're looking at about, okay, I didn't actually see that, I think it's about 1000 damage also per damage point. The Bombards being a new enemy from update 15.5, I believe, do bring a complete new game to Void because they are considered as alloyed armor enemies, versus your standard heavy gunner, which is ferret, i.e. they do not take as much damage from corrosive as your heavy gunner, so that's definitely something to keep in mind. Just got a heavy gunner here. If you do a body shot, you're looking at about 900 damage. And if we do a headshot, we're looking at about, so that was obviously a very good crit at 12,000 headshot. If you do a normal headshot without crit, it's about 2,500. And we'll try again on this Bombard here. So normal body shot, you're looking at 1000 per damage point with crit. And if you do a headshot, you're looking at, so that was 400 without crit. Now the reason we're doing much lower damage to the Bombard again is because I have a corrosive heat build on, and they really don't take extra damage from corrosive. They do take extra damage from radiation, however. So yeah, pretty consistent at 2800 headshot with heavy gunners. So Bombards. So yeah, 4400. Now if we look at the 12,000 we're done with heavy gunners, there's again, that pretty much shows the difference in builds. So I think that's enough damage demonstrations. Now that in itself pretty much means, you know, this weapon is top tier. Obviously it may take you 1 or 2 shots to kill these guys depending on whether you get a crit or not. So there's a bit of extra probability, but other than that, you know, killing these enemies is definitely no problem with this weapon. Now you may have noticed back there where you unleash the Justice effect with this weapon. So being a syndicate weapon like all other syndicate weapons, this do have that added perk. So for this particular weapon, once you fill the bottom right hand corner gauge, again I believe it's 2000 EXP, no one have corrected me on that yet, so I'm going to stick with it. So once you get 2000 HP, you'll fill your gauge, and once that's completed, you will unleash a 1000 AoE blast damage. In addition, you will gain 25% of your total HP, as we just saw then. I went from 5 to 190. In addition, you get a 25% increase in armor for 30 seconds. Alrighty, so let's sum this beast up. Now, before I go to the scoring, I just want to say 2 things that are very important. The first is because we have an increase from 6 to 10 magazine size, we do not need to use Ice Storm, which means we do not need to, you know, force that blast combo on there. So it allows us to obviously use a better combo. It allows us to free up that 40% extra damage mod for another much more higher damage mod. And the other thing is because of the higher crit chance, you know, a crit damage build is definitely justified on this weapon. So because of these 2, you know, not so obvious changes, the entire weapon changed from the standard Marelok to the Vaykor Marelok. And these 2 significant changes made this weapon an infinitely stronger weapon than standard Marelok. So as far as the final scoring goes, for low level speed kill, you know, give it a 2. Let's be honest, this weapon sucks at low level speed kills. You know, you got much better weapons for it. But that aside, this weapon is great at everything else. For high level, you know, 60-minute plus T3T for survival, 50 wave plus T3T for defense, this weapon is made for these kind of missions. It has extremely high damage potential, it has extremely good ammo economy, and of course it's long range, so it is all purpose. AoE potential, now let's face it, it's single target damage, but it does have the Justice effect, so we'll give it a bit higher AoE rating than say the standard Marelok. Now, I've had a couple people saying, hey, because you have that Justice AoE effect, wouldn't that mean it's quite good for a low-level Exterminate because you can obviously kill enemies around you? The answer to that is no, it's not that good because in Exterminate type missions, there are only a handful of enemies, and by the time you gain enough EXP to fill that gauge, half the enemies in that map are dead. So you unleash it once, and then by the time you accumulate again, you pretty have finished the mission, so you can't really use it for that purpose. And of course, finally, for subjective factors goes, personally, I enjoy this weapon. I like the fact that it's a standard shooting gun. It requires better aiming, and you get rewarded for aiming and getting a good headshot. And finally, everything about it just great. It's such a better upgrade than standard Murloc. I like the initial Murloc, and the fact that it's an overall upgrade in almost every aspect just makes me like it that much more. So total scoring 5.5. Now, as usual, a weapon between 4 to 6 is generally, worth noting is pretty decent. So this weapon getting a 5.5, 0.5 marks from 6 means this is damn top tier. Now, one final recommendation, suggestion, or hint I want to leave with you guys before I end the video is these days, I definitely do not recommend selling weapons to free up a slot. Now, previously, whenever there's a direct upgrade, such as in this case, I probably would have sold the Murloc, but now I would not do that, just because more and more we're getting new weapons that require an old weapon. For example, the Tybron being a recent example, the Redeemer requiring the Duskan as far as the Vasto, another example. So for these reasons, it's just worth keeping these weapons. I mean, it costs 12 platinum for 2 slots. You can easily get 12 platinum from trading. You don't have to, pay money for it. Just get some mods, get some prime parts, sell prime parts, 5 plat each. There will be people that buy it unless you're looking at something that's completely worthless. So definitely save your weapons. However, there's really no need to save Warframes. Once you get a prime come out, again, this is just personal recommendation. I do recommend selling the non-prime Warframe, because Warframe as a rule in the past year and a half also, they are always just chassis, system, and helmet. There's never an occasion where Frost Prime requires the initial Frost. Recently, I've sold my 5 from my Nyx to make place for Nyx Prime, and when I get Nova Prime, hopefully in the next few days, I will sell Nova, which is also heavily formatted. It sucks, but hey, that's just what it is. Alright guys, please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Cheers.